Hello, hello, hello. Video request from Gypsy Hustle, who gives me lots of good video requests. Very nice, well thought out ones, not the shallow ones that Mark Del Rio and Martino give me. But I like those ones as well. Okay, video request. Do you agree with the Republican notion that success is achieved alone and the tax is punishment on success? Do you think there was ever a time in human history where an individual was successful and didn't receive support from his/her community? In hunter-gatherer society, wouldn't individuals thrive more in a group than alone? At the zoo, I see chimps acting socially, which makes me think humans are also social animals. Isn't socialism more natural to human instinct than this idea of private gated community where everyone is individualistic and doesn't believe in helping the less wealthy? When did selfish individualist ideology become so popular during your lifetime? I read about how loneliness is a big problem in society, so it makes me worry that too much individualism can lead to depression, because it's against the natural evolution. All right, that's a goody-goody. From Gypsy Hustled. Okay. So, do I agree with the Republican notion that success is achieved alone and that tax is a punishment on success? Or that tax should be a punishment on success? No, I don't agree with that. These Republicans who say that, you need to fight for what you got and everybody, there's nothing wrong with being rich and all that kind of stuff, and rugged individualism and all that kind of stuff, they get boosted more than other people because they're the party of the big business, and the big businesses, those guys who are in charge of that stuff all went to private schools, primary, secondary schools, and private expensive universities and stuff, and got introduced to all the right business people and all the connections and all that kind of shit. So they're just hypocrites, man, when they're like, oh, you gotta, don't take my money for the lazy people who just want to sit on their ass all day long. If I want to work hard and get filthy rich any way I can, then that's my prerogative. No, I don't agree with that. I think that's stupid. Do I think there was ever a time in human history where an individual was successful and didn't receive support from his or her community? Well, I think most of the time, that word successful, you hear that a lot with people, like, I always wanted to be successful. I think people use that word successful in interchange with money. Like, being successful means making lots of money. When people, are successful, like in a, whatever job they choose to do, they always get support from the people around them. Ever since, trade unions, those have been around since the beginning of the dawn of man. Back in the Iron Age, they would have the trade unions. You wouldn't have trade unions, I guess, in lands of where there was just hunter-gatherer type societies. But as far as so do I ever think there was a time in human history where people didn't receive support from his or community? Well, there's a saying, prophets are never received in their hometown. They always are only accepted in the places where they travel, because in their hometown, I guess people would just see them as, they would remember when they were kids and before they became, they picked up speed, and so they didn't want to see them become successful because they just couldn't get it in their head that they would be great, or they would be jealous. They wouldn't want somebody in their hometown to do well. There's that song from P. Diddy and Biggie Biggs where they're a little dun, 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 I'm coming out, bum, 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 bum. The more money you make, the more problems you get, or something like that. Oh, how does it go? The more money, the more da da da, then the more. Anyway, it's like the more money you get to make, the more like people are jealous at you and pissed off at you and want to take you down, all that kind of stuff. And so I think it's kind of there's been a pattern like that ever since the beginning of mankind. And so somebody's got a great idea and they want to shake it up and bring a new religion or something to the world. They get rejected in their hometown, so then they go travel around and then they do better. Back in the dawn of Christianity, after the days of Jesus, those Apostle Paul and the apostles would travel all over the Roman Empire preaching. And Apostle Paul was from Tarsus in eastern Turkey, and there's no chapter in the Bible called Tarsans. And there's Corinthians and Romans and all that stuff. It's they listened to him in other places where he wasn't from. And same thing with Peter. Peter preached in Rome and was killed there, but he was originally a Jew from Jerusalem, or Israel. So I think that would be the moment in history where people do not receive support from his or her community. They get out there and they receive support from like-minded people. And if you have a mind that is not like the people around you, or you're like different, the best bet is to just increase the talent pool. Go out there and search for people of like mind, and so just travel all over and just you make your connections and you meet people that way. There was an ad of a few years ago. There was an ad of Yahoo groups when this is like way before Facebook or MySpace or anything, and they had an on TV, and they had the little midgets like running into the bar and like trampling everybody because they got to Yahoo groups and they all banded together. So yeah, that's the example of not receiving support from your community. It's creating your own community. And so that would be the historical context for that. In hunter-gatherer society, wouldn't individuals thrive more in a group than alone? Yeah, in hunter-gatherer societies, kind of like the Indians, 150 years ago in America with the tribes and stuff. You would always thrive in your tribe. In your, sometimes you would go into a band. A band would be like, a dozen or two people, or like a dozen people, like a couple of families or something, And a tribe would be like 100 people or something like that. And a clan would be like 200. I don't know I forgot the exact numbers, but yeah, you always have to have your band to take care of you in those days, because it just takes lots of people to corner the animal, run down the animal. In hunting, you need the bands, and that's the main thing. But also, you would get captured and killed or thrown into slavery if you were out there, just traveling around. You always had to have your protection. Like, for example, I listened to an audiobook just yesterday called Agricola. And it's about this guy Agricola who, back in ancient Roman times, this would have been like, just after Jesus, around the time of Jesus, when they were first starting to inhabit England, a group, like a band of Romans tried to sail around England just to map how big the island was, because the Romans were getting to be interested in it. It was the largest island of the known Roman world. And they got captured by Scots and sold into slavery. They weren't successful. So yeah, I guess the only time that you would be really successful being totally alone is if you were a traveler and you were just really good at fighting off like random bands of people by yourself. And, you just got really lucky, and you just, were a good trader. You knew how to communicate with people and show them, what you were worth. Like you had this and you had information and all that kind of stuff. There were people like that. Like Marco Polo was like that back in 1100s. He traveled for 20 years to China and back in the 1200s, to China and back, and by himself. So there's always been people like that, but they're few and far in between. Obviously, because we didn't know each other back in those days, there weren't that many people sharing the information. In hunter-gatherer society, wouldn't individuals... Okay. At the zoo, I see chimps acting socially, which makes me think humans are also social animals. Yeah, humans are definitely social animals. Just like, lions and dogs and dolphins and monkeys. Yeah, humans are definitely social animals. They're not like lizards who can just hang out by themselves their whole lives, in fact, yeah, we're the ultimate social animal. We're the only real social animal. Okay, so isn't socialism more natural to human instinct than this idea of private gated community where everyone is individualistic and doesn't believe in helping the less wealthy? Yes, socialism is definitely more natural to human instinct than, like somebody who lives in a private gated community and only hangs out with their group of people and people who are like-minded to them and, look like them. And for people who live like that are just not as happy. Because they're not living in their natural state of how they're supposed to be. I read Booker T. Washington's book a couple days ago, and his belief and from his experience that people who helped other people were happier than the people who just helped themselves. And, because if you just help yourself, then you're going to start it kind of starts a chain reaction where you're going to start taking advantage of other people and then ripping off other people, and then it doesn't feed your soul, so you just it can get worse and worse. All right. When did selfish individualist ideology become popular during your lifetime? Yeah, I think we have, as far as economically, we have been getting a lot more selfish and individualistic among the super wealthy, because the top 1% makes 20% more than the normal people, than compared to the other people than they did back in the mid 70s. In 78, they passed a federal law that said that corporations could be considered like human beings. So that when people go and visit their politicians, they could lobby their politicians on behalf of the corporation. So you could send in the lobbyist and represent the corporation as the people, because the original idea is that the politicians represent the people, and so yeah, the corporations are like, okay, well, legally we're a person, so now they're like the only ones at the meetings. And ringing their phones, and that just turned into this whole system where the politicians need them to get in power and to keep making their money, and so that was passed in 1978, and then they also deregulated banks, I think around 1978 too, like in South Dakota. So a lot of banks went there and started doing that kind of stuff. So I'd say 78. So that was during Carter, A lot of people say that the shit started to get really bad under Reagan, but I mean, I think Carter was a good president. I think he was better than Reagan. But, yeah, but he was in power when that happened. So, Democrats and Republicans, man. Okay, so let's see, what's the next one? When did, okay, I read about how loneliness is a big problem in society. So it makes me worry that too much individualism can lead to depression because it's against our natural evolution. Thanks. Yes. Loneliness, I think people would become lonely, yeah, if they don't have any goals in life, any goals that they think are really important for the world. If you have a goal that you think is really important for the world, you'll be working on it, and you'll be happy working on it, and you'll be happy just day after day living that life, knowing that you're doing something good for the world. People who are like leeches on the world or don't have any direction are very not happy, and some of them, you can actually go crazy, go insane, like go schizo. And so, there's lots of stories of like super wealthy, like trust funder kids who go nuts. Like, I remember that DuPont guy back in like 96 or something who thought he was like the greatest wrestler ever. He was like, whack job, dude. He was like this super psycho. He's just like halfway retarded. He thought he was the greatest wrestler ever. And so he donated a whole bunch of money to the Olympic wrestling team, and they needed the money, so they allowed him to be like an assistant coach. And so he'd go in, and he was like skinny guy, didn't know anything about wrestling, and he'd like go in there, and they'd like let him win wrestling matches and stuff, and it was just, and he ended up going crazy because like as they kicked him out of the wrestling because he was just being too annoying and too controlling and all that kind of stuff. So he shot the Olympic wrestling coach dead. DuPont, yeah. He kind of reminds you of like Nero. Remember Nero, and like Commodus, who thought it was a reincarnation of Hercules, and they had him go and fight in the arena, and they, everybody would lose, and then he'd go off to they let him win all the time. Then he'd go off to the Olympics, and he'd win the Olympics, like 5 different, events, every single one, because then he thought he was the greatest ever, and he ended up going crazy, and like killing people. He had to get assassinated, both of them. It's like this, it's like a formula for insanity. So I think that's a feeling of loneliness. Feeling alone and loneliness is when you're not integrated with the rest of society, and you're not living a life that is good for the rest of the world. Then you're isolated. You're not a social being, and it's not natural, and you're not going to be happy, and you're not going to be healthy, and you just might end up completely off your rocker. And then lead to depression. Because it's against our natural evolution. Okay, so humans are social animals. We're the ultimate social animal. Now we're at a stage where we really have the opportunity to transcend to a whole new level of knowledge and education, where we can all communicate and figure out each other out and understand science and understand the way that everything works, and history, and all the different nuances of all the different cultures and everything, and we've got the social media and the Google and YouTube and Wikipedia and all the different news channels and sites, and we're just at the age of information. We're just that's what they call it. We're the age we're in, just sharing all the information and growing our brain. One interesting analogy is, I think we have like 20 billion brain cells in our brain. And, all these cells are like individual units, but they all work in integration, in conjunction with each other. And so there's an idea that like maybe when the world hits 20 billion, which we could, within my lifetime, maybe we could, and we're all integrated. Maybe the world could become like one big brain, like our brain, where we all work in conjunction with each other, and we can all be capable of just having world peace, because we all understand each other and work perfectly well in unison, like the Borg, only a healthy version of it. You know, the Borg from Star Trek, but a healthy version of it, where we all play our own little part, but perfectly, like a fine oiled train, and we can have a utopia. So because we're all integrated and communicate with each other, and we understand each other. So I think the key to becoming a true social species is the communication. That we all understand each other, so we all should share our ideas and and all the data about each other as we can, and study each other as much as we can. The more you think about something, the more you'll be able to understand it and be able to think about it. I did a video a couple days ago talking about like past lives, and I was just saying like various like past life memories I had, and then a few days after that, or up to today even, I started thinking all sorts of other past life memories that I didn't even mention in the video, because the video made me remember. It kind of opened up that section of my brain and helped me remember all sorts of other stuff. And now if I was going to do another video, and I should, about past lives, talking about all the stuff that I didn't talk about before, then the next few days after that, I'd be thinking about a whole bunch of new stuff, and then have to. And so it just opens up. It's like opening up the floodgates. It's like opening up Pandora's box, and it all just comes crashing out. And that is the true essence of socialism, communism, of us human beings being social to our potential, and really, I mean, our understanding can be a lot bigger than it is now. And they say that we only spend like 10% of our brain, and Einstein used only like 12% of his brain. So maybe that's why. Maybe that's proof that we're not living up to our potential. And if we used 100% of our brain, then we would be even like having all sorts of telepathic powers, and like even remote telepathic powers, and also psychic powers, and be able to look into the future and the past. I mean, who knows what we'll be able to do, once we all integrate, because it's like the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. Our knowledge can increase exponentially with our as we learn more and share more with each other. We've never really we haven't gotten to the point where we have lived up to our potential, and because we do have the ability to really understand stuff deeply. We all had these like flashes of brilliance, but it's so ephemeral. It's kind of like it's just a teaser to push us along and try to strive and learn. So yeah, but the only way we can do that is if we all really work together and use each and every one of us individually in society, because we all have a different job to do. We all have a different talent. Like every brain cell is there holding a different memory. Every organ in our body serves a separate function, and so that's same thing with all of the different cultures in the world. America is so successful over the world. We're the kings of technology, culture, sports, war. I mean, we're the kings of everything. I mean, way more than our population. 5% of the population of the world with 95% of the influence, and it's because the sum is the final product is greater than the sum of its parts with our cultures, the great melting pot. We get all the different cultures here, and we all let them express themselves, and we can create magic, create new mixes of various different cultures, and just learn all sorts of invent all sorts of amazing stuff that America's invented with technology and everything and culture. So yeah, communism is the way to go, not the Republican idea of the gated community and rugged individualism, and you work hard to get what you have, and then you can get super wealthy, and making the money off the backs of other people, and then the stupid people, since they're like lazy and don't achieve anything, just let them live on subsistence. That's a faulty ideology, because it's not true, because those people who are successful and who believe that it's a lie. They got helped along the way because they played along. I think all of the like in the world of the elite in America, and like in the political parties and stuff, it's like you get farther ahead, and in school, in high school and college and everything, the people who get really far ahead and are allowed to succeed are the ones who fit in the best, who are the best at fitting in. That's pretty much common knowledge in high school. You kiss the teacher's ass and you get passed. If you don't kiss the teacher's ass, they kick you out of school. And I didn't know how to kiss the teacher's ass, or I didn't care, and they ended up kicking me out of school before I knew what hit me. And yeah, same thing with like the elite, in the business world. Like if you just play the game and you fit in, then you're successful. And if anybody doesn't, or if you associate with anybody who doesn't, they could become like a danger to you, and then you could get blackballed. And so yeah, you just have to fit in and play the game. It's kind of like that movie Survivor. That kind of mimics the primitive way of how we all socialized, where people would band with each other to gang up on somebody else, and make the alliances and all that kind of stuff. But that's not what will take us to the next level. We have to keep our focus on the next level, because if you have this idea that like this us versus them idea, where you only give points to people who play the game in a system that is based on selfish, you do something just because it helps you instead of because it helps the world, it develops into a two-class or a multi-class caste system society, and that is destructive to the country. It turns everybody. It's not good for anybody. I read the autobiography of Booker T. Washington the other day, and I've read other books about slavery. And slavery is really bad for the slaves, because there's no opportunity for them, and they live really hard lives, having to, mine and toil all day long in these flax shirts, and just, not being given any education, and be getting abused by the boss and all that kind of stuff. But it's also bad for the slave owners and the white people, rich white people, because it turns their soul black, and it makes them like more and more evil, and they get meaner and meaner and meaner. And I mean, the stories that you hear from the old slave times is just despicable. People like, remember that movie Lee Daniels the Butler with Forrest Whitaker? I saw that in the theater a few weeks ago. At the very beginning, the guy rapes. It was like the mother and father black people, and they weren't even slaves anymore, working in the fields, and then they had a son, and the guy like raped the mother like right in front of the father, and the father just goes, "Hey," and the guy just shoots him in the head, kills him, and then takes his son and makes him the house slave or house negro, and that's just pure evil right there. And then they were mean to the blacks in all kinds of ways, whipping them and yelling at them, and it turns into this whole power struggle, because then you think you have the right, and if you're growing up in that world, you think you have the right to be above, and you're better than them, and if they look at you wrong, or if they disobey you, then you like get all butthurt about it, and then you have to like kill them or whip them. And countries that live by that kind of ideology don't do well. The South wasn't doing well. They could only make money with the farming. They weren't becoming industrialized And India didn't ever really. India is just a third world country with all that caste stuff, caste system. Even though they had a beautiful ancient culture with lots of knowledge and everything, they had the caste system and just couldn't break out of that and industrialize. Like the countries in Europe that did the best, like England were the ones with the most, and Germany were the countries with the least centralized government, where people could have the freedom to start their own businesses and think for themselves and do their own thing. And that's why America does so well, because people are encouraged to think for themselves. And so we can't have the system. We have to do whatever it takes to make the wealth gap between the super rich and the super poor as small as possible, and the opportunities of all the people from all walks of life as great as possible, because then we're increasing the talent pool. And countries with the biggest talent pool do the best. We know that from how well Brazil does in the World Cup, because they have everybody there plays soccer. America does the best in the Olympics because we have 300 million people, and China does so well because they have 1 billion people. So increase the talent pool. So you gotta bring let the poor people, give them the opportunities in the country and society. And so yeah, that's why we need a socialist country, like a communist country, where we nationalize the oil fields, nationalize Monsanto, nationalize the banks, nationalize everything, to put regulations on everything and keep it so that people like ultra wealthy can't band together and create monopolies for things and shut everybody else out. And like our country really took off really well after Teddy Roosevelt broke up all those monopolies, those trusts. And also those people shared their money. The robber barons became the philanthropists and built all the libraries and concert halls and all that kind of stuff to help the people. And our country really took off. We had the Roaring '20s and everything. But we didn't regulate it enough, and so we had the crash. But then we figured out how to regulate it more and make it fairer, and so that's really the only way that we can be successful in a society, is being truly communist, being truly socialist, where we share everything and we have we give as much through taxes of the wealthy, or creating socialized systems to help everybody is the only way that we can go forward and be successful. Otherwise, we'll just have these rich people who sit on their ass all the time and end up going nuts and just babbling nonsense, becoming hypocrites. It's interesting to think about the difference between the right wing and the left wing, like the Republicans and, I guess, Democrats. See, I think Democrats are way cooler than Republicans. Republicans are they're the right wing. If you look at all of the laws that are passed and proposed and all that kind of stuff, all of the ones that deregulate environmental laws, it's all by Republicans, like 95%. It's all Republicans, because they're all the ones who are beholden to the big companies and the money, and they're all into money. But their constituents are all of the the really ignorant fundamentalist Christians who in traditional Christianity was actually communist, and it was the Jews who were the capitalists. The Christians were the ones who started the churches and donated money to help the poor, because that's what Jesus said: help the poor. And a lot of, I love Christianity. I think it's the best religion in the world, way better than Buddhism or anything else. But when you get into be the fundamentalist Christian, those are just like the stupid people who just follow rules, and then they start twisting stuff around. And they're doing that now. They're saying that Obamacare isn't Christian, because it's not freedom, and Christian is freedom, and they're just like making shit up, like going crazy, you know, like Bill O'Reilly. That guy is insane. Like, he's like, yeah, there was this strip club that opened next to a nunnery, and the nuns started preaching in the street against the doing a demonstration against the strip club, because I guess they had nothing better to do, just sitting on their ass all day long, taking the taxes of the Catholics to try to keep the strip club from opening, even though it had nothing to do with them. When the women walked in, they were fully clothed. What do they care? But Bill O'Reilly's like, yeah, good for you for protesting against that strip club that is violating your human rights. He said the strip club was violating the human rights of the nunnery. So they just twist it like about face, 180 degree backwards. It's like total hypocrites. So, yeah, I mean, those are their constituents, though. They're the stupid people, because you'd have to be stupid to allow that, make these laws that allow these giant companies to go in and just take our land from us and suck up all the resources for their few amount of people at the very top to make, you know, so the top 1% can have 90% of the wealth of the country. And they just say whatever they want. Their little constituents believe it because they're dumb. And so that's why their followers are the fundamentalist Christians, because those are like the stupid type of Christians. You know, the people who think the world was created 6,000 years ago and stuff like that. You know, like Sarah Palin, perfect example of that. So yeah, self is individualist. If you want to be like a true rugged individualist in the best sense of the word, those are the people those are like the heroes who work hard and do their share and act as good examples for everybody else and make enough money to live comfortably, but not so much money that they don't have to work at all later on, and then can have their kids never have to work, and create some new little enclave of society where they just sit on their ass. And those people always end up being destructive. You know, like France before the French Revolution. Versailles had 10,000 people living there and just sitting on their ass partying all the time, and they didn't know what the hell was going on, and they didn't have any common sense. You know, the people wanted to talk to the king about the problems, and he's like, I don't talk to you. What? No, I don't. Here, you have your meeting away. And they had to have their meeting like in the ball court on the edge, you know. Is he not merciful? Allow them to have their meeting in the tennis court. Yeah. So yeah, that Republican notion that success is achieved alone, and the tax is just a punishment on your success. It's totally nuts. It's totally hypocritical. You're not getting there alone. You're getting there because you're playing the game. And the tax that comes is just a tax to try to keep the wealth discrepancy as small as possible. If you ever get in an argument with one of these people who think that the rich should just be as rich as they can, and then just let the $10 an hour folk, you know, it's their fault that they're $10 an hour. It's a dog-eat-dog world. What? Fuck you. Just tell them that. Just bring them back to tell them how bad slavery was, you know, and that slavery and all of the bad, the negative consequences of that, and that came from all of the wealth discrepancy and power discrepancy. We have to, like, human beings are very intelligent animals. We're the only super intelligent animal that can totally communicate with each other and come up with all these abstract ideas, and we all have the same level of intelligence, you know. Just because somebody is like super rich doesn't mean that they're more intelligent. In fact, it can make them less intelligent, make them crazy and stupid, you know. And then super poor people, they have the same kind of brains, and if they work really hard, then they can actually be more intelligent and bring them up. It's like this natural foolproof system that nature built in. You know, this balance. If you work hard, then you become more strong, and you're more capable of more. If you don't have to do anything, then your brain will atrophy. You know, like in astronauts, you throw them into space, they don't have to exercise, their muscles will shrivel up. And so, you know, it's just this beautiful balance that God made for us. You know, like if there's too many plants, then then there's too much oxygen, but then that will make it so that more like mammalian life can survive, and so then they create the carbon dioxide, and then if there's too many animals, not enough plants, then there's so much carbon dioxide, then now the plants can grow up, and so it's just perfect balance. They keep feeding off each other. Well, same thing with hard work and not working. The shake-up of the classes. That was a beautiful thing that happened with the Industrial Revolution and in modern times, where when we got rid of the landed classes who could just sit on their asses and get the taxes of their land, and all the peasant workers, and then the bourgeoisie could come up because the hard workers, but then they took advantage. So then we had to come up with the communist laws or trust breaking laws, and it's if you look at the patterning, it all brings it. The super wealthy always get knocked back down, and the poor people always come up, and it just shakes up, and it's this recurring cycle. It's like a lava lamp. The bubble gets really high, and then it falls, and it goes up, and it just keeps society shaken up. So that's the natural flow of things. So it's not natural to have one group of people who are like, wasn't it Aldous Huxley or something, the time machine, and the guy gets in the time machine, he goes in the future, and there's and it becomes like there was like actually two species. There was like the tall, beautiful people who run the world, and then there were all the short rat people who took care of them and just did the labor. And that's like one possibility of the future that we could go if we keep going down that road. People like the writer, he took acid and he kind of looked extremely from that direction. Well, we can all agree that that's a world that we don't want to have. We want to have a world where we're all the same and we're all happy, because then we're not going to have wars. Wars start with, and rebellions and all that ugly stuff starts when the suppressed fight back, because they're not lower. We're all the same species, and we all have the same abilities of things, so to do things, and so we all deserve the same amount of opportunity, and like that we deserve to have enough money to take a vacation 3 weeks a year, and to have our weekends off, and to have our afternoons off where we're not exhausted, and even raise kids. So that's what the tax on the wealth is all about. It's just to keep the wealth discrepancy down, because those people who don't have to work and sit on their ass and are super rich, they're not happy. I mean, look at these politicians and all of these reality shows of like Paris Hilton and stuff. And they're just partying, going from this party to that party and that party. It's just, and then they get into their drugs, and then they just get to the end of their life, and they end up like becoming alcoholics, and they're just not happy. I remember there was an interview with Howard Stern and Sean Lennon, and Sean Lennon's like, Howard Stern's like, oh, you're rich, you have a lot of money or whatever. And Sean was like, well, you can be really rich and still be not happy. Having money doesn't determine how happy you are, and that can be. That's the truth if all you are is rich, and that's all you have going for you, So yeah, dude, being communist is the best way to go. It's funny, like we had this big like backlash against communism in the 50s with like Joe McCarthyism, and but that communism from Russia, that's totally oligarchical. That's less communist than what we think of what communism should be, where we're socialist, like we're all share everything. That's less, communist than what we are in America. That's total gangsterism. It's just they just called it communism, where they owned everything, and all the people who worked didn't own anything because it was owned by the state, which was controlled by the oligarchy. So just because Russia called it communist and they call themselves communist, and they got their ideas from Karl Marx, doesn't mean that whole idea of what Karl Marx was talking about, and the idea of communism, like socialism, where it's all state run, is totally bad. Like all the countries with the best health plans and median per capita income and everything, and happiness quotient and all that kind of stuff, are the most socialist countries, like those Scandinavian countries in North and Western Europe. in Canada. Because all of the different, segments of society are the same. You want to live in a world where you go to school and all the kids are basically can all hang out with you. All the different cliques can talk to each other. You don't have the popular kids and the unpopular poor kids and who resent each other, and the popular kid, the rich kid resents the poor kid for resenting him, and it's just if you look at history, that wars happen over and over again, and most of the wars, actually a whole lot of the wars, a huge, if you include the wars and rebellions and strife and everything, it's from people rebelling because they're getting walked over by the elite, and so they fight back, and that's always how it's going to be until we allow everybody to have a level playing field. It's like the war on drugs, People are always going to smoke weed and say fuck you to the people who want to throw everybody else in jail for smoking weed. Until you legalize weed, there's no winning it. The only way that we're ever going to get to the next level, especially like what we're potential, if we're going to become psychic and use 100% of our brain and communicate everything to everybody, you can't do that if we have all these different social classes. Because imagine if like Paris Hilton started uploading vlogs. Hey everybody, yeah, today I got up and then I went and had a $500 breakfast with my girlfriends over at the Hilton, and then we went over and we went to the club and did a whole bunch of cocaine, and then for lunch we flew over to Rome and we had a nice Italian meal, and then we went over and drew our Maseratis around. It's like everybody get pissed off at her for saying that. Like all the poor people watch who are like, oh yeah, and then it's like, how could she be friends with the poor guy? Oh yeah, my good friend Amelia. I was chatting with her on the phone. Her day went like this. She got up at 6 a.m. and was cleaning toilets all day long, and almost collapsed for the third time this week from exhaustion. And then I got home at 11 o'clock at night. And I went to bed and just had enough money to eat a little bit of rice, and then went to bed and got up at 4 o'clock the next morning and went to work. And of course they're not going to be friends, and they're gonna resent each other. The poor person's going to resent her. And then so if we can't have a world where we're all communicating and sharing our ideas and our lives and everything like that, if it's so much wealth discrepancy, it's just strife. But if we all were lived the same kinds of lives, basically had the same kind, like the poorest person in the country was like, yeah, I got up and I worked for 6 hours, and then I came home and I went to the gym and I went on a run, and then I did I read a book about this and I talked about that and the yada yada, and it's all good. And then the very richest person in the country was like, yeah, I got up and I worked for 6 hours, and I came home in my nice car and I had a nice hike and my nice shoes, and it's basically the same life. It's just a little bit posher with the rich person. And then now they can talk to each other and be cool with each other and hang out. You could have some if you have a party where you just invite 100 random people from the country all to get together, and then that they're all going to get along. That's the country you want to live in. But the only country that would work is if everybody is around the same level of wealth. Same level. Otherwise, it's the poor people are just going to fucking mug the rich people. Or the rich people will kill all the poor people or something, So yeah, that whole Republican thing, it's all smoke and mirrors. It's all hypocrisy. It's all lies. I mean, whatever they say, if they ever say anything, I mean, they're all projecting. Whatever they accuse, like the libs or whatever of being, that's basically what they are. Like those lazy-ass libs who just want to leech on society. It's like, well, have you ever worked in your entire life? Like, what did you do today? You just sat on your ass and had lunch, and it's like, no, but I worked really, my great-grandfather worked really hard to get me where I am now. What the fuck? So yeah, humans are super social, and the only way we can thrive is if we communicate. And if we all communicate and we all integrate ourselves, 20 billion people communicating with each other, it could, who knows, the sum would be the greater than, the whole, the end product would be greater than the sum of its parts. We could, who knows what we could be capable of, man. All of our brains could become activated, and all of a sudden, if we're all using 100% of our brains, and we're all communicating with each other, we'd all just know everything instantaneously just because we all are on the same page, It's like brainwashing. If we all watch TV and we all believe the same thing, then you've got somebody. Like if Chile, you already know what a Chilean thinks because they're all so closed-minded. You already know a Chilean thinks that you're the only people alive in the entire universe, and that you can just like this whole programming and brainwashing. It's real, It's like there's this thing out there that ties you down. So if you could reverse that and have it where we all communicate with each other, and we all believe that there's life everywhere, and we're all every man is created equal, then we could, oh my God, the level of understanding, like we don't even know what we could not even know. We could become God beings. So yeah, and we're the only animal who can truly achieve that. So we got to go for it. We got to communicate. We got to start vlogging and answering each other's questions. I'd love to be able to ask somebody a question and get their answer. Like this guy. He likes to answer me questions. How come you don't ever do my video requests, Martin? Get with the program. Or Gypsy Hustled. Well, I don't want to start like talking trash about my subscribers, because then they're going to unsubscribe to me and stop giving me requests. But did I just like diss people and pump myself up? I don't want to do that, because that's like saying that I'm like better than you. I'm not better than you. I'm not smarter than you. I'm just what's the difference between me and you? I'm lucky. I'm one of those lucky bastards who can have enough free time on my hands to and is isolated enough from the rest of the world because of my inability to socialize with people, because I'm like stupid in that way. No, because I just don't want to. I was just in the right environment, and now I'm doing what I can do and communicating, and everybody is their own little part. Like I can't give questions like Gypsy Hustle can. I can't do that. Probably because my ego is too big. I can't be an anonymous person just out there asking questions, because I guess I'm too arrogant or whatever. I'm too conceited and all that kind of stuff. So good on you. Thank you so much, Gypsy Hustled, for being the person who poses the really good questions. And thank you, Martin, for being the person who gives me all of the different cool questions about my personality. We're all a little piece of the puzzle. We all need to help each other. We can't be pushing each other down. And that's the true socialism. That's the true essence of communal living. It's just allowing everybody to be exactly who they are, so that they can strive as hard as they can, work as hard as they can, doing what they do, and we create magic. But you can't hold anybody back, and that's what. If you don't give anybody a chance and you make them work all the time, and you try to tell them to shut up, then you're not. That's not natural. What's natural is to let people roam free. It's like back, if you want to go back to hunter and gatherer days, like Gypsy Hustle did. That's like survival of the fittest. People could do whatever they did. God, that's what the system that God set up. If my band is stronger than you and I can hack your head off and kill all of you, then yeah, I deserve to have your land and all that kind of stuff, because we have the freedom, and you had the freedom to do what you did, but you were lazy and you didn't. But we're not in that world anymore. We're in a world we're in the next level, where because back in those days, in hunter-gatherer days, there was a level playing field. The weak band who ended up getting killed, they had just as many opportunities as the strong band of people. They all had the same kinds of clubs. They all had the same kinds of arrowheads they could whittle from the ground. They all had the same kind of body. It's just that one group was in a situation where, maybe because they grew up in a hard environment, they had to fight to survive, and then they came down to south to Italy where they were sitting on their ass eating olives and kicked their ass. And but once we become more of a social beings in a society, it kind of gets reversed a little bit, and like the people in Southern Europe, they could live really easily because they were farmers and they just sit on their ass, which gives them a good life but makes them lazy, and then they get taken over by the Northerners who come down. Same thing with the rich people. Rich people, you sit on your ass, you live a good life, and then you get lazy, and then somebody else comes along and comes up with a better company or something and takes over your company because you were sitting on your ass and not paying attention. And survival of fitness puts you out of business. But if you're not living on a level playing field, and you've got some business that's got some monopoly because you can undercut everybody else if somebody tries to come up, well, that's not fair, and we need to actually instigate laws to make it fair. Just like God has these laws set in place to keep all the balance. We have to do it ourselves because we're coming into our own. And that's where government comes in. That's where taxing the rich and everything comes in. It's just us kind of becoming God, playing God, and getting up to that level. So yeah. Anyways, the future is communal living. Like if you look at of aliens in the future, I did a video a couple of years ago, like 4 years ago, like aliens live in a fractal. Yeah, like all the aliens, like they're the same, and they all look the same, and they all act the same and think the same. Like when they say, like, yeah, we say and we believe, if it's because they're all, like the Borg from the Star Trek. That's kind of where we're going in a little bit, because they're all on a level playing field, and they're not competing in that way, and they're all becoming more social. It's kind of hard to describe, but that's basically how it all comes about. And then we become good stewards of those below us, like the animals. Those animals live in a dog-eat-dog world. Those hamsters will fight each other to the death, that I have. But I take care of them, and I make sure they don't do that, and I put in rules with them, and, I would separate them if they fight, and I'm like, so, because I'm like a God being to them. And so that's where we're going. In our society, in 100, 200, 500 years, we're going in a place where we're more fair to each other, but because of our laws, like a republic is better than a pure democracy. Pure democracy is like mob rule, where it's like survival of the fittest, and that's like going back to feudalism. Republic is where you get educated people down there to write out specific laws to keep everybody in line, so that we don't have one of these survival of the fittest situations where gangsters can't come up and band together to make everybody else work for them, so that they can sit on their ass and like be rich and spend all the money and rape the world and buy all the houses and all that kind of stuff. We have laws, and that's what we need the laws for. And we need to follow those laws, and we need to keep making more and more laws to protect the common man. And so that's the essence of a democratically elected republic, like America, that's secular, that doesn't put one religion above another or one race above another. And that's the essence of true communal living. Yeah, and that's the only way you're actually going to be happy. The people who help others are the happy people, because that's what our natural state is. You live to help your animals and make your animals happy, and your plants happy, and your children happy. And then you're really happy if you're helping everybody. And the country itself is happy and healthy when everybody is sharing. All right, so I think I've pretty much said all I can say without repeating myself over and over again. Peace out.